Hello, women destined for greater. We are going to be going over dangers of online dating part 2, some additional things to be thinking about, additional ways to help protect ourselves better. And again, like I can't emphasize this enough, make sure you are sharing this information with other young women, especially since they're doing so much more online now with the online dating, just like the way that they even live their lifestyle through the social media quite a bit. It is very important. They know how to handle themselves with wisdom and discernment in these last and evil days. All right, women destined for greater. It's me, Dr. Kimberly. We are back. We are back in the area with the domestic violence awareness and prevention. And next week, I believe I'm going to share this story that I seen on YouTube. And I'm praying that we would learn a lot from it. But it actually triggered me to make sure that we knew the importance of the dangers of the online dating. So I've got it pinned up at the top, techsafety.org. It was really good. I think it really lays out well some of the things that you can do to help protect yourself. And it's real important that if you end up, with somebody that, they portrayed themselves one way, and now they're acting a totally different way with you. They really lay out how important it is to lay out the documentation, okay? And they even have a sample abuse log on their site. So I really encourage you, Women Destined for Greater, to get out there on that site to see what's out there. How if you ever run into trouble, don't. You still have power. God is not giving you a spirit of fear. All right. You might be being used to stand up against this particular individual and his tactics and what he's trying to do to you, because most likely you are not the first victim. And sometimes some people, they have trouble standing up, and then others, they've stood up, and for whatever reason, law enforcement sometimes is not taking them seriously, or they haven't done enough for law enforcement to, really go beyond, a certain measure, okay? And so it really made it clear for us to understand when you're online, you really need to protect your privacy. And one of the things that we sometimes don't think about when we sign up for different things, say if you're on eHarmony, Tinder, blackpeoplemeet.com, whatever you're using, okay? Even I know Facebook has some kind of dating thing now. These sites have a tendency to sell our information. Okay, so be very, very careful. That's why you'll see some people, they won't put their first name and their last name. And you probably should do the same thing. You don't want to be so easily looked up, okay? So easy for you to be found, all right? So we want to keep that in mind. When we're using those different sites, they're selling our information. And one of those things that you'll see a lot more class action lawsuits now, because somebody got hacked, or guess what? Now they got to send you something to protect your credit. Remember, free credit and all this additional free credit monitoring, because it's entirely too much malware, too many hackers, too many ways for people to get access to our very sensitive and personal information. Okay. So it may even be a good idea if these sites are requiring you to pay, because sometimes they've got, where if you want the better access to, the better quality people, so they say, or whatever, that you need to put your financial information, like a debit card, a credit card, or something in there. It may be a good idea that you actually have, say, a separate account where you just put money in there just to pay the different things. I don't recommend giving them your debit or credit card, and this is like your main card, to where you say your direct deposits are in there, just all the different things that you can think of. I would not give them access to like that main account. I just don't think it's a good idea. So something I want to share with you all, give you a different insight. All right. So they say, unfortunately, amongst women, they are more likely to experience harassment, okay, online. All right. And then depending on how quickly you move along with the person, that harassment can be just more than just online. Now, if they know where you live, they can come to your house. Now, if they know where you work, they can come to your house. Can I just tell you something? When you first start meeting some people online, again, there's some information about yourself that you just don't need to give out. So if you have not ever been stalked or have not been aware that you were being stalked, I want to give you the keys that you should not be giving out where you live. Especially if you have children and other people that live in your home that are counting on you, you are putting them also at risk, not just yourself. So don't be real quick to let people know where you live. The second thing, don't be real quick to let them know where you're working. Okay, so think about it. Most of these relationships and things, they're not lasting. And so I'm not trying to be the, what do we call it, the negative Nancy, but we just giving real facts. So in the event that you know that the relationship is not going to last, you break it off with him. Now, where can he find you? You got to go home at some point. And realistically, you got to go to work at some point. So those are two critical places that you may not want to be so quick to mention that this is where you work and this is where you live. Okay. And I know sometimes we want to, invite people, say to like our church home and different things of that nature. That's a little bit more open, right? But be careful. Okay. Even with that, I've heard of where people had awesome church home, hadn't been having any problems out of the pastor and the other leadership and the members, and then the ex, went crazy on them, went back there and just slandered them. And unfortunately, sometimes some people can be so convincing with their lies and the different things that got going on. Now, the church home that was once so great for this, young woman, she had to leave. So you may want to think about those things that are those real sacred places. And then to say this, be careful of anybody that wants to kind of know like where all the rest of your loved ones live, where your friends live. I know some people, they have a real bad habit of being way too trusting. Want to let everybody know, like, you got some key family members that backing you up, that love you, want to protect you. That person that you're dating doesn't need to know where they live either. Because if you ever had to get away from him, you done told him all these different places. He's going to the places that he knows. Now, I'm going to say this like this. Depending if you didn't even tell him, if he's been stalking you, if he's been following you and you didn't know that, tracking you some kind of way through the software and all of that, now he knows those places as well. So we have to start using a higher level of wisdom. We're in the last and evil days. When I share that the Lauren Charles story next week, you will see the importance of when there's red flags in the online dating, why you don't want to ignore it. Okay, you do not want things to go south on you quickly. Okay. Yep. So, and also what they talked about, I kind of mentioned it with the online harassment. Not only can they go to, say, like your church home or try to even belittle you, like with your friends and family, but they can harass you online and try to ruin your reputation that way as well. So though that's a red flag. If somebody's not getting what they want, they got to turn on you. They got to be real nasty, got to be real vicious. Not only is that not a friend, let's be realistic, that's not a husband. God has better for you. Sometimes the issue is we don't want to have to wait, right? You don't want to have to wait as long as it's taking, it's just seeing for the right husband to show up. But I'm telling you, what some women have been through and bring these different stories to you, we have to take heed. And then for some of us, what we've gone through personally, we've got to learn from our mistakes. Just because somebody comes and present themselves does not mean that they are the one. All right, so let's continue on. So remember when I was telling you, when you get started on these things, don't give out so much information. Don't give necessarily your first name and your last name. Be careful about like things that identify you. So like any photos that show like what kind of car you drive, got your house in the background, shows where you work. Too many pictures that say like your mom, your children. When you're doing this online dating, you might think that, I'm being an open book. I'm not hiding anything. No, don't put anybody else at risk. It's time to start thinking the opposite way now. Because like I said, we're in the last of the evil days. The enemy's not fighting fair. And I'm standing up because I'm tired of seeing how he's getting in here and taking advantage of people that really desire to be married, to desire to be loved. And he got in there and he manipulated and he abused, and some of the women did not make it. And then unfortunately, even sometimes some of their children did. So we need to take this seriously. Be very careful about how much information you're putting online. Just some different things to think about, okay? So we know the tips about if you get some red flags and the person keeps pushing about meeting in person. A red flag with that would be they're kind of trying to demand that you meet them at a certain place. That you might not be comfortable where they decide to meet you. And also the wisdom is what? Look it up. Because sometimes people say, they made it seem like it was going to be this awesome cafe. And then I looked it up. It was an empty parking lot. It was an abandoned warehouse. That's a major red flag. It's a house that was for sale. Major red flag. Don't ignore it. You don't need anybody trying to trick you, trying to pull the wool over your eyes, all right? So if they're being too pushy, you look up the address and you see that it's not what it is. A quick internet search can save you a lot of time, trouble, and hassle. All right. Just can't emphasize that enough. All right. If you also get some other red flags on the person, like maybe they seem like they're too good to be true, it's worth it to, Google their name, look into who he is. Okay. And then if you got the extra time, and I think for some things that's getting to be entirely too much domestic violence, too many other issues, and, assault, you name it, different levels of domestic violence, the criminal background check. Now, remember, they say that sometimes it's only going to turn up if the person was arrested or prosecuted. So sometimes it may not turn up all the information that you need. So you keep getting a bad feeling and you can't shake it whenever you talking with this person online or over the phone and whatnot, do not ignore it, all right? If they're sending you attachments with links and spyware and different things that you got to click on, be very, very suspect about that. Because remember, I was telling you guys there's different levels of the catfishing, and eventually I'll have a room on that where we go through that and really understand what that all involves, because I'm seeing too many people be taken advantage of because they may not understand all what catfishing is, and they don't think that it'll happen to them. All right, but we're living in different times. We cannot keep giving people the benefit of the doubt. Okay. All right. So if you did decide to meet up with them, you always make sure like I mentioned in the room before, last week's room, you do not go by yourself. Okay. Somebody needs to know where you're going. It's good that we can feel that we're grown, we're an adult, I can take care of myself. It's a lot of human trafficking going on. It's a lot of domestic violence going on. It's a lot going on right now. And this isn't the time to get real prideful, to get super independent about that you know how to protect yourself and this, that, and the other. Somebody needs to know where you're going, okay, who he is, All right, like his username from the Facebook or wherever you're dating from, Tinder, blackpeoplemeet.com. Somebody else needs to know enough about this individual. So if something goes south, somebody's able to tell the police something. Because see, the time it takes to get the subpoena, to try to get into your accounts and all of that, that's a lot of time sometimes that's going by that could have already been used to been looking for you, trying to find you, trying to relocate, say your loved one, even if it's not you, but even, some of our younger people, not knowing the dangers, that are out here that exist. Make sure you're sharing this with the other young women in your life. They need this information. All right. So again, remember I told you, look the place up in advance. If it's not what he says it was, do not meet him in person. Okay. Yep. And it's okay for the dates not to be that long. All right. Okay. So now let's look at when they start talking about the evidence and documentation. So like if you ever end up in a situation where you really kind of need maybe a permanent restraining order on the person, and let's be clear so we understand that restraining order is letting it be known to law enforcement and to that individual that they cannot get up on you, right? They got to be so many feet back, right? They can't, be coming to your job, coming to your home, coming to where you're at church, and different things. However, just know that controlling type person, that restraining order will most likely agitate and provoke them. So you still need to be ready to document their behavior, let other people know what's going on. Do your best not to be alone a lot when situations like that occur. People need to know what's going on. All right. And so sometimes people say, well, why didn't they go get the restraining order? Well, you got to have documentation of the abuse. Okay. You got to, because people can, unfortunately, there was a time where people could just easily lie on people and just kind of ruin their lives. And so now I feel like we're at the other extreme where maybe it shouldn't have to take as much to get your restraining order because of what's going on in society today. Is unfortunately kind of like all around us. We can't miss some of these news headlines. And for some of us, we know some of these people, right, that it did not end well. And I think it's time for them to really start looking at some things differently. But like we know, knowledge is power. So they have this sample documentation log on the techsafety.org website. I highly recommend that you familiarize yourself with it, if you're able to print it out, and all of that. But now here's the thing. Depending on how much access this person has to you, you don't want to leave it where they could come across it and be spying on what you're doing or start ripping it up and all of that. So maybe as you fill it out, you're taking pictures of it, okay, and you can send it to somebody else that's trustworthy, all right, for them to keep copies and all of that. So you always kind of have to have a backup plan, right, in mind. So we'll look kind of quickly here at some of the tips on documenting the abuse. It said keep a log of all the incidents, all right? So that's the date, the time, the location. Was there any witnesses? Was it over the phone? Was it in person? The who, what, when, where usually would probably be real good on your log, right? Save everything related to the event or incident, right? So if it was a threatening text message, you're screenshotting that, you're saving that voicemail, right? You make sure to save it and don't, and you want to make sure there's no way that they can get access to maybe, do you need to change your password to your voicemail? all right, to your phone, the code and all that. How much access does this person have to you? Okay, because I can even think of some other stories. The poor young woman, she was doing her best to try to get away from this individual. He lied about his age. So that was a level of catfishing. He said he was younger than he actually was. Now, sometimes we got to think, why would he want to be younger? She was younger, okay, like late teens, 18, 19, and she was doing really well for herself. And her story, unfortunately, ended tragically. But one of her friends could see in her Facebook, he had access to her Facebook at a level that he should not have been able to access. So whenever she was posting in some kind of way, it looked like he had hacked in. And the friend saw it. She said, he's got way too much access to you. She said, I need you to move out of town so that you don't end up dead or whatever. So that was the warning. And I think within 2 to 3 weeks or something like that, she was gone. So she needed to have been thinking about moving, and getting out of town as soon as possible. So we let you know, be aware. How much access have you left your phone unattended with this person? You cannot just trust that they did not go through your phone. Did they ever pretend like they needed to use your phone? Did you watch them the entire time while they was using your phone? Okay, so if this person is maybe a little more technologically savvy than you, you don't know what they might have done. You may have to actually let that phone go and start new with a whole nother phone, okay? Or take it into the store and see if they're able to find any spyware, anything, because there's ways to hide these apps and all this kind of stuff now, does he have anything on there that's giving him all your text messages, all your voicemails? It's giving him access. See, we live in different times now, things to think about. All right. So think about technology that you suspect the abuser could be using, right? Different tactics. How is he getting access to information? And sometimes they'll slip up. That's why sometimes they tell you it's good to not talk so much, right? Let them talk. You may say something that you'll know, wait a minute, I didn't tell him anything about that. He seemed like he knew into a conversation with one of my friends. That's not a coincidence. Don't let it slide. It's a red flag. All right, think about your safety first. In some cases, when abusers know victims are documenting them, they can start to get more aggressive. They'll start to kick it up a notch. So, you want to document stuff, but you want to make sure when you're doing that, he's nowhere around. All right. And then you may want to even have it where, let's say, for instance, maybe if you got a real good friend, a real good sister, an aunt, somebody else, maybe you're taking the pictures and the documentation on their phone, okay, and then sending it to a backup email or something that he should not have access to, all right? And then it says document only the relevant information, because you want to make sure whatever you're documenting, it could get introduced, into a court of law, right? Into what you need to obtain your restraining order. So be careful about the different type of photos. What are you comfortable allowing to show, how this person has been harassing you, abusing you, etc., right? All right. So what to document? All right. Emails contain IP addresses, okay, which could reveal the originating IP address and therefore the identity of the sender. Because of that, it's important not to delete the email and not forward the email to someone else, okay? So if you're getting some emails that are just plain disrespectful, going off on you, remember, email is forever. If you got the option to be able to print it out and keep it somewhere safe where he would not have access, something to think about, So again, if you got maybe like a safety deposit box, even if you have a safe, but if it's a safe that like he can pick it up and carry it away, I wouldn't recommend that, okay? It was the only time I think I could recommend using a safe, like in your own home, you know beyond a shadow of a doubt he does not know where it's at. That you do not allow him access to certain parts of the house. So anybody that's kind of pushy wants to know where everything else is in your house, and why can't I go in the basement, or why can't I go up in the attic, why can't I do... They're showing you some red flags. They should respect your boundaries. If they cannot respect your boundaries, then they're showing you that this is just, it's one thing to be nosy, right? But then it's a whole nother thing to be getting information, to be manipulative, to be controlling, to kind of know where different things is at. They shouldn't be knowing the code to your safe, right? They shouldn't be knowing the code to your phone. None of that. Sometimes in relationships, sometimes people don't want to admit it, but they're letting it move too fast. Okay? You shouldn't necessarily be having the access, like if you've got a backup key. There's been plenty of movies. I think it was like The Perfect Guy or something like that. And some other movies too, and TV shows where they have that. If they get locked out of the house, they've got a key hidden somewhere. And sometimes you just can kind of forget, oh, he's right here with me. He's watching your moves. So now if you hid the key, you had a certain spot, and he saw it, now you need to change where you're going to hide any other backup keys. So these are some of those things that sometimes you can forget. Giving them access to, say, your debit card and your PIN. When it's over, or you're suspicious, or maybe you've made a mistake now, hurry up and get a different debit card, get that one canceled out, and he doesn't need to know what that new PIN is. Don't let anybody pressure you into thinking that level of intimacy is required for you to date them. Okay, those are the different, kind of exposing some of those different levels of catfishing, but we will have a separate room on that to really make sure people understand what's going on with that. Text messages, all right? You can take screenshots of those, and you can send them, to email and to people that you trust to ask them to keep it, all right? So know that. So sometimes certain text messages, they're only going to keep them, for so long, right? So know what the expiration is. Have your backup plan. Make sure you're taking that picture so that way you have what you need, all right? Keep evidence, right, of what they're doing. You can even do screenshotting on the social media and internet harassment, the harassing phone calls, like, writing it down. So even if it's you're on the phone and they're on the phone, which is not just a voicemail, which is kind of easier to save, right? Some states have laws about recording, conversations, so you have to know the law, but you can write down what this person was saying to you, how many times they sat there and called you. You can screenshot, if you depend on what kind of phone you got, where it would show you how many times this person has sat there and called back to back. That's harassment. If somebody can sit there and call you 20 times within 5 minutes, just giving an example, it should never be back to back. That's not the only, number and the amount of minutes, but when somebody is just calling you entirely too much. So you document all of that. Document the date, the time, each time that they're calling. All right. And so again, you've been keeping your documentation. Remember to keep taking pictures of your documentation. So if it ever got found, you're not having to start all over, right? At square one with all that you have. So I wanted to make sure you have this information, because I think it's really, really critical, because more and more people are finding it convenient to try to do the online dating, but there are dangers, okay, to the online dating. Like I was explaining to you all last week, people really can pretend to be somebody else. And that's one of those levels of catfishing, just putting on a whole nother mask. They just become a whole nother person. But a lot of times the women are finding out it's a reason why he's single. It's a reason why he's had so many relationships. And here's this, so many failed relationships. So Women Destined for Greater, I'm praying for you. I pray that this will encourage you and help to protect you and other women that you know. And also it's important that we reach as many young women as possible. They need this information. They need, because they're in a world where they're doing so much more online now. And so we have to be able to navigate what is going on. All right. And encourage them that that they don't have to be embarrassed when something goes wrong. Don't worry about if people are going to be talking about "I told you so" or any of that kind of stuff. People need to know what's going on with you. We don't want you ending up being the next news headline. We don't want that. Knowledge is power.
All right, women destined for greater. Let's go over the dangers of online dating, part 2, the red flag summary. All right, so be careful about giving out too much information about yourself. You really shouldn't be giving out your home address, where you work, because like we said, at some point you got to go home, and at some point you got to end up showing up to work, right? And what schools your children attend. Sometimes we can just be a little too trusting, letting our guard down way too much. Don't let anybody pressure you for all that information. They don't need to know where all your family and friends live. If it ever, that relationship ever goes south real fast, you need to be able to go somewhere where he would not be able to easily find you and your children, especially if there's children involved. You gotta be thinking about these things. Also, be aware that women are much more likely to be harassed online. So stalking can start online and escalate to in-person stalking. Be aware of that. Okay? Be aware of his temper. Does he explode on you? Does he have to humiliate you in public? Does he have to go back to, say, your church home and start spreading all these lies? Does he have to start lying to your family and friends? Does he slander you, whether online or in person? Be aware of that. Okay, that's a huge red flag. Do not ignore it. You may need to consider doing a background check. Do a background check, okay? And it might save you a lot of time and energy trying to invest into someone, and they find out they've got major issues like stalking, domestic violence, restraining orders, assault. You may be surprised what you could find just by doing a background check. Look up addresses he gives you on the internet. Okay, if they are not legit, end it. Okay, if he's saying he lives here, you look it up and it's an empty parking lot, it's a house for sale, and it's not in his name, things like that. Huge red flags. Okay, he want to know where you live, but now he's giving you bogus information. Don't ignore that. Change your locks and spare key hiding places. All right, see, sometimes you can forget. Did you leave your keys unattended with this person? Did you forget and lock yourself out one time and forgot, the spare key was here. Now you need to change that hiding place. Change your locks. All right. Did you leave your phone and your computer, iPad, different technological devices unattended in his presence? Change your passwords, access codes, when it's over, right? It's over. Some people have a hard time letting go and moving on. And so you need to do all you can to help to protect yourself so that you can move forward with your life. Someone needs to know who you are dating and what app you met on. Okay, it's good to want to be private and all this and that. But somebody needs to be able to point law enforcement and some of your true family and friends in the right direction if you come up missing, if you come up physically harmed, or even worse, end up deceased. You need to be able to point them in the right direction. All right, keep an evidence and documentation log. Okay, if you are really seeing some really bad red flags on this person, keep the date, the time, the location, and witnesses of the abuse, of the incidents, the harassment, the things that are going on. Take pictures or record the incidents if possible. All right, and then take pictures of your documentation. Have a backup person and a location for this info, because if he ever got a hold of all of this and now you would have to start all over, that could be a real frustrating situation to be in. But if you got a backup person and a location for this, that's a good plan. And maybe not someone that's so obvious that, especially someone that he should not have access to and should not know where they live as well. All right. So those were some of the red flag summaries for the dangers of online dating, part 2. All right, women destined for greater. It is very important that if you have been through any of the things that I mentioned in this dangers of online dating part 1, any forms of domestic violence, any forms of toxic relationships, whether family members or friends, that you know the difference between strength versus being healed, being strong versus being whole. There is a difference, and I encourage you, allow me to come alongside of you and help you during times like this. Sometimes it's just really important to have the right support system. Email me at womendestinedforgreater@gmail.com. God has better for you, and I'm encouraging you not to give up. You got what it takes to make it.